Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this press conference after the Eastern Partnership Summit that took place today here in Brussels. The three speakers will first give their introductory remarks, and after that it's time for your questions. So without further ado, I first invite the chair of the summit, President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, to take the floor.
Thank you, Preben. Good afternoon. We have just concluded the fifth Eastern Partnership Summit. It is only 8 years ago that we launched the Eastern Partnership at the summit in Prague. I remember it well because, as the then Prime Minister of Poland, I was one of the initiators. The reason for launching it was simple. We wanted to bring our European neighbours from the East closer to the EU. This required a more strategic and comprehensive approach towards the region, which had become the EU's immediate neighbourhood after the 2004 and 2007 enlargements. And we did this with a new ambitious offer of political and economic integration. I believe we can be proud of our achievements. Today we have association agreements with Georgia, Moldova and Ukraine, which include the most important areas of cooperation, from trade to visa-free travel. The EU is today the first export and import market for Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Georgia and Moldova, and the second biggest market for Armenia and Belarus, and a major investor in each of them. Our achievements are bringing our people, businesses and countries closer together in a very concrete way. In short, we are reuniting Europe step by step. Later today, we will be signing an ambitious new comprehensive and enhanced partnership agreement with Armenia, while negotiations on a new agreement with Azerbaijan are ongoing. We are also developing our relations with Belarus. When it comes to our future, we agreed on new political and economic objectives that we want to reach by 2020. We want to reinforce Eastern Partnership cooperation in a number of specific areas, such as small and medium-sized enterprises, digital economy, broadband investments and investments in transport, energy and infrastructure projects. The list is long. But above all, we want to strengthen links between our citizens and give more support to civil society. In the coming years, we will offer greater opportunities for youth to participate in exchange programs and traineeships in EU countries. We want more students and academic staff to benefit from the Erasmus Plus program. But while there are indeed good prospects for the future, frozen and armed conflicts continue to prevent development and create hardships in Eastern Partnership countries. The death of 5 Ukrainian servicemen yesterday is just the latest proof of the tragic consequences of Russia's aggression in Ukraine. The EU condemns Russia's aggression and will never recognize the illegal annexation of Crimea. There should be no doubt that our common future lies in the EU's readiness to open up EU policies for our partners. And I can reconfirm that we are ready to do that. It is also the sovereign right of each of our European neighbours from the East to choose the level of ambition and the goals they aspire to in their relations with the EU. And for me, the key sentence of the association agreement still is the one which says that the European Union acknowledges the European aspirations of its associated countries, that is Ukraine, Georgia and Moldova, and welcomes the European choice. and all choices remain open. I personally believe that the European aspirations expressed by some of our partners are the best chance to achieve success for their societies as well as for the stability and prosperity of Europe as a whole. Today we have adopted a joint declaration, which is, as always, a compromise. I would prefer that the wording of the declaration were more ambitious. But we all decided that the demonstration of our unity is the most important objective. This unity is best expressed in one paragraph of today's declaration. The summit participants recommit themselves to strengthening democracy, rule of law, human rights and fundamental freedoms, as well as principles and norms of international law, which are at the heart of the Eastern Partnership. The European Union remains committed in its support to the territorial integrity, independence and sovereignty of all its partners. To sum up, we can be satisfied with the results so far and be hopeful for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now invite the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, to take the floor.
Good idea. President, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, and for most of you, dear friends, the Eastern Partnership is first and foremost a partnership of people. It's about bringing our societies closer together. I was attending all the Eastern Partnership summits so far, and this was the very first time that leaders, after having read their speeches, because they are in love with their papers, they were discussing openly and frankly, not hiding away divergences and differences which may exist. This was the day where we took stock of the progress towards achieving that since we last met in Riga 2 years ago. But it was also, as Donald said, a time to look forward. Today's signature of the comprehensive and enhanced partnership with Armenia illustrates our commitment. Over the last 2 years, since Riga, we have taken great strides in making the region as a whole more stable. And all sides agree that stability must start at home. The European Union can be helpful, but stability must start at home. That means having a job, having access to education and training, and being able to prosper in a strong economy. This is what European Union support has been focusing on. Since 2009, we have provided 1.5 billion euros worth of support to small businesses across the region. Le commerce, nos relations commerciales,
our trade relations
des emplois
create
et créent
jobs,
la croissance
and they
dans les pays
stimulate growth
avoisinants de l'Union
in
européenne.
countries in our
les
neighbourhood.
importations
In 2016,
en provenance de Moldavie
imports from the Republic of
est un
Moldova,
pays de plus en plus européen,
and that's a country that's becoming more and more European,
de 7,7%
well, they increased by
par rapport à
7.7% compared to
grâce à
2015,
l'accord historique
thanks to
libre-échange
the historic
approfondi et complet
DC
avec l'Ukraine.
FTA
Les exportations,
with
tout comme les
Ukraine.
importations entre l'Union
Exports
européenne
and
et
imports
l'Ukraine ont
between
augmenté de 27%
Ukraine and the
entre janvier et août
EU increased by
2017.
27% between
L'Ukraine
January and August of
fait
this
des
year.
progrès
Ukraine
remarquables,
is making
ne fait
remarkable
pas tous les
progress.
progrès dans la mesure où nous l'aurions souhaité, mais en règle générale,
There is some
l'Ukraine,
progress which hasn't been made yet,
fait bien les choses.
but
Et donc nous allons
Ukraine
poursuivre
is
avec
doing
l'Ukraine
things in
au
the
cours
right
des années à
way,
venir sur un
and
plan notamment
we will work together
microfinancier
with Ukraine
notre
in
coopération à
the
condition
future,
que l'Ukraine respecte un
in
certain
terms
nombre
of
de
microfinancial
conditions
support,
dont
as
elle
long
est
as
d'ailleurs
Ukraine
d'accord.
respects certain
La
conditions with
stabilité
which it
est aussi
agrees.
une question de confiance
Stability
et d'équité. Cela veut
also
dire
means
qu'il
trust
faut mener
and
les réformes
fairness.
nécessaires pour
The necessary reforms need to be introduced to strengthen good governance and fight against corruption. Sometimes this is underestimated. We need to ensure the proper functioning of public bodies and the judiciary, making it clear that they are there to serve the citizens. Now, if these reforms are forthcoming in the judicial system, the fight against corruption, that will strengthen investor confidence in the whole region. The European Union has also contributed to connections with countries in the eastern part of Europe, connections between the countries themselves and connecting those two with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, these examples serve to illustrate that the Eastern Partnership is delivering results. Not all the results that we expected, but nonetheless a great many results which we were able to agree to in Riga and in earlier summits. And now it is apparent that the efforts that have been made need to be doubled, and we need to focus on the really important issues now. Today, we agreed to 20 specific deliverables, specific measures, which will be set out in the conclusions in the press release. We need to enhance our economic relations. We need to enhance governance in all its guises. We need to strengthen connectivity. And in so doing, we need to strengthen societies in our neighbourhood. As Mr. Tusk has already indicated, we set great store by the fact that we would wish to involve people in eastern countries in the Erasmus programs, 80,000 more young people than has been the case hitherto. So not everything is perfect, but it's better than it was.
Prime Minister Jüri Ratas of the Estonian Presidency of the Council. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honourable journalists. I will not repeat what so well President Tusk and President Juncker have already said. Let me just give to you two reasons why I am pleased with today's summit. First, because we had an open and really good debate. We agree a joint declaration and we have a vision of 20 goals for 2020. This matters because it will improve the lives of people, and in the end, this is what Eastern Partnership is all about. You will not be surprised to hear that I have today underlined the importance of digitalisation as an effective tool to achieve these goals. Secondly, because with today's summit we have brought the Eastern Partnership to the European mainstream. Today's summit was one of the most important events during Estonian presidency. Estonia has now been a proud member of the European Union for 13 years. We are currently having our first presidency of the Union, and next year we will celebrate our 100th birthday. Our eastern neighbours have also been part of Europe for more than a century. Once the Estonians could decide over their own fate again, we chose the European path. It took time, it was not always easy, and it required a lot of effort and reforms. However, this path gave us hope, made us stronger and inspired us to become the nation we proudly are today. A democratic, European and future-oriented digital society. I am sure that Europe can inspire our 6 Eastern partners as much as it did inspire us Estonians. The Eastern Partnership is tailor-made for each country according to its own ambition. Our neighbours are coming closer to the European family, and we should support them. I am convinced that stronger and stable neighbours make Europe also stronger and safer. We are stronger working together. We are better together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now open the floor for questions. I believe the first hand was right here. The lady to your right, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Georgian Public Broadcaster. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, in the declaration we read that summit participants acknowledge the European aspirations and the European choice of partners, concerned as it is stated in the association agreements. You just mentioned about it also, but there is no word about European perspective. In the morning, when we talked with President Juncker, he said that it is not an accession and enlargement summit, we know, but still want to hear more from you. Why there is no consensus on this topic? Why the leaders are not ready now to take the next step? And also, with the close relationship with associated partners with Georgia, Moldova and Ukraine, what signal do you want to send to Russia? Thank you very much.
Aitäh küsimuse eest, et kõigepealt
Thank you very much for your question. When we talk about Eastern Partnership, what I said before the introduction to the press conference, it is very important that we see Eastern Partnership. We need to think about the specific steps that must be taken, that we can take to our Eastern Partnership countries and to the European Union. What President Juncker said, it is very important what we do for our citizens. This is what we must think about, what we must focus on. Yes, what is the way that we take? What are the two specific steps that we will take by the year 2020? This is what we agreed upon. But when we look back at the 2 last years, what has happened since the Eastern Partnership Summit in Riga, we have made progress. Visa liberation, association agreements, many other things. This is what we discussed today. This is what we can do between the EU and our Eastern Partnership countries today. And this is a very good way forward.
As I have said before, the Eastern Partnership is not directed against Russia. It is not a geopolitical beauty contest between Russia and the EU, but a real partnership between sovereign countries, without political, economic or military threats and coercion between the EU and our partners from the Eastern Partnership. But let me be honest. I spent the first half of my life in the Soviet bloc and the second part of my life in the free world, in the West, in the political meaning of this word. If it was a beauty contest, I would not hesitate for a second what to choose.
Okay, we go to the next question. I see the gentleman there, I believe in the 6th row. Danny?
Thank you. Danny Kemp from AFP. President Tusk, a couple of things, if I may. At the weekend, you were talking about Poland and saying that raising the possibility or raising a comparison with a possible Kremlin plot in terms of causing tensions between the EU and Warsaw and Ukraine. I was wondering if you saw any other Kremlin plots in the EU at the moment. And secondly, on Brexit, do you expect an offer from Theresa May today on the Brexit bill and everything else? And also, she's saying that she wants the EU to step forward together with Britain. Is that a realistic suggestion from her? Thank you.
No, I'd like just to maybe to recall what we said today in our common declaration, because what I feel is that we need to recall these words, in fact, every day. And because and I want to dedicate these words not only to our 6 partners from the Eastern Partnership, but also to all 28 member states. The summit participants recommit themselves to strengthening democracy, rule of law, human rights and fundamental freedoms, as well as principles and norms of international law which are at the heart of the Eastern Partnership. What does it mean? It's a very simple, but at the same time, I think, very proper interpretation of our history in the 20th and 21st century. That our aspiration here in Europe and in our closest neighborhood is to be a part of the world where human rights and rule of law and freedom of speech are the most important part of our set of our values. This is maybe the main difference between the EU as a whole and the geopolitical alternative to vis-à-vis EU. And for me, today the most important thing is to recall to our member states that this is our foundation. If you want to be as attractive as before for our neighbors, we should be aware how important for all of us is this block of the fundamental values. Today we witness in the free world on both sides of the Atlantic some consequences of interventions which are in fact against this set of values. It was also a topic for some member states today during our discussion about the future of Eastern Partnership, that one of the biggest problems today is a real threat when it comes to cyber attacks, fake news, hybrid war, etc. After very clear messages in the last 3 or 4 days, it was, for example, speech from Theresa May in London about hostile activities during the British referendum, for example. We also remember some very brutal events during the elections in some member states in the EU, but also in the United States. This is why we have to be very, very cautious, vigilant, and also honest. If you want to protect ourselves, if we want to help our partners from the Eastern Partnership, we have to, first of all, be aware about the threats inside the EU. And this is why I try to alarm also my compatriots. When it comes to Brexit, I prefer to comment my meetings not only with Prime Minister Theresa May, after my meetings, not before. It would be much easier, maybe tomorrow, maybe
Thank you.
Later, to comment what is Prime Minister May's intention today.
Thank you. And the next question goes to the lady in the, 10th row. Yes, please.
Epp Behand, Estonian Public Broadcasting. Question to all of you. As you are all great enthusiasts of Eastern cooperation, are you happy with summit results? And to follow up this question about membership and the European aspirations, don't you think there should be some kind of roadmap for Ukraine, Moldova, or we should admit that it's a dead end? I know it's not the summit's topic, but what's your personal opinion?
I'm never happy after a meeting. Never. Because you are never reaching the goals you have fixed for yourself, but sometimes you are reaching the goals others have fixed for themselves. That was the case today, so they are happy. I'm less happy, but nevertheless I'm satisfied with the outcome of this meeting, because for the very first time, as I said in my introductory remarks, leaders were speaking openly and frankly. I was missing that during recent Eastern Partnership Summit, so that was better. And there were divergences amongst themselves. When it comes to the second part of your question, as I was saying when entering the building, this was not an enlargement or accession summit. Had it been an enlargement or accession summit, you would have put another question. But it was not about accession and enlargement. Of course, the countries concerned, they are on their road, on their virtuous road to Europe. And we have concluded so many agreements with them, and we should try to implement those.
Thank you. Like I said before, that during our presidency, one of these priority is the Eastern Partnership. And of course, I am positive that we could say today for BM that we have this joint declaration between Eastern Partner countries and EU. I think that is this kind of realistic situation what we have today on the table. The second message, I think it is also very important that we could see that this Eastern Partnership is the priority for the whole European Union. And that is also very positive, and I think that is this step what we could do today. What will happen tomorrow or in the future, this question, it wasn't on the table. We know very concrete this kind of roadmap for the 2020, and I think these messages, what we have today, these all are very positive. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one last question. Yes, please, the gentleman here in the 5th row. Richard?
Okay. Richard Josviak, Radio Free Europe. Two quick questions to Mr. Juncker, if I may. I understand that there was a debate upstairs, quite a hard one, on Ostravets, this Belarusian nuclear power plant that is very close to the EU territory. Does the European Commission have a position on this right now? And I also understand that the Ukrainians wanted you to look into and perhaps present some sort of feasibility study or roadmap for Ukraine to eventually join the energy union, the customs union, and the digital union. Is that something you will look into when it comes to Ukraine?
When it comes to the nuclear power plant you are mentioning, I have to say here that the Lithuanian president and myself, we were mentioning, as the Belarus delegation was there, this issue. And I have to say, as far as the Commission is concerned, that we do not consider this issue being a bilateral issue between Lithuania and a neighboring country. It's a European issue. And I'm in full solidarity with the Lithuanian president and with the Lithuanians when it comes to this point, and we will follow this very closely. It's not something we would deal with benign neglect. Your second question was? I had a long meeting yesterday night with the Ukrainian president, and I agreed to have this feasibility study being done. All three? Done?
All three, digital, customs, energy.
So you were putting 5 questions. We will undertake the feasibility studies the Ukrainian partners were asking for.
Thank you very much. This concludes the press conference. Thanks for coming.
So.
Specific areas such as small and medium-sized enterprises, digital economy, broadband investments, and the EU is today the first export and import market for Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Georgia and Moldova.